think that, oh, I'm gonna wait for the screen. So maybe people are seeing me dance right now. I have no idea.
I'm showing that it's
at a 17-second. Yeah, exactly. And we are live. Let me go back to you, Kristen, beautiful Kristen. Yay! Good afternoon. Good afternoon, live from my roof again. It's partly sunny, partly cloudy today, so I'm turning into a weather woman. That's not true. I like to think I am sometimes, but I'm happy to be outside. So today we are Tuesday. So thank you for being live with us. And thank you, Kristen, for coming back. I really enjoy our interview collaboration all the time. You know, I've said it last week, like we've known each other for so long and we've done so many different things in various capacities, workshops, retreats, and it's just always a pleasure having you around.
Thank you. Great to be here.
You're so welcome. Yes. So so yesterday I talked a little bit about training our visualization muscle, and it's really the basic muscle to start playing with for creativity, right? So whether we visualize something from the future or from the past, it's great to keep it alive and see how we can imagine things and feel things and really tap into this creativity thing. And being creative is a muscle worth nourishing, because without that, there's nothing. It would always be the status quo. And there's a great quote that I like that is most recently have been attributed to Vivian Green. So we don't know who said it, but it apparently it might be her. She says, "Life isn't about waiting for the storm to pass. It's learning to dance in the rain." So today's intention is created to also notice your thoughts. You know, what are the thoughts that are going to our mind? Because when we go through the process of creativity, even though we can put ourselves into that, there's also the real world that comes into play and saying, oh, your ideas is not good enough, it's not perfect enough, it's not refined enough, it sucks, or we're so in love with our ideas that we're not thinking about further about it. So it's important to know to be with our thoughts while we're creating at the same time. So what I love about having Kristen today with us is she's gonna help us tap into our own natural creative source and letting our imagination guide us. So the first step is learning to be with visualization, and the second step is to be with your thought and allowing yourself to be with your own imagination, whether it's a good or bad idea. Because when you really think about it, great ideas, you have to have a lot of bad ideas before it becomes a really good one. So Kristen, I will leave you the stage.
Thank you, Jen. So
You're welcome.
The first thing I want to say about creativity is I think it's important to remember that creativity is innate. You know, as children, we all are naturally creative. And I believe that creativity is not so much, especially as adults, that we have to learn something. It's about unblocking whatever sometimes unconscious or semi-conscious or even fully conscious blocks that we have about our own innate abilities to be creative, to use our imagination, to dream, to visualize, and to create. So I think also, having said that, one of the things that's important to consider is that by creativity, that's a big field, right? So there's the creativity that, especially as adults, we tend to think of as like, okay, do you mean like professional creativity, like people who are artists, or like that's how they make their living? Is that, you know, somehow more creative than someone who does it simply for their own self-pleasure, for joy? And then also creativity really can be anything. You know, it can be cooking, it can be gardening, it can be the way you arrange a space. it can be how you be with people. It doesn't have to look like necessarily sometimes what we think is that more narrowly defined, like painting, dancing, singing, acting, writing. You know, creativity is like a huge expanse of possibilities. So I think those are the first two things to really consider, is that right here where you are right now, you have the ability to tap back into your creativity the same way that you did when you were 3 and 4 years old.
Yeah.
So that's what I want to play with today.
Yay, let's play like kids. I was talking about kids yesterday too. That's perfect.
The other thing I want to say about that before we get into a little bit of just play with that is, one, that there is a piece of brain science behind this, which I think is important to know. One is that as children, one of the possibilities of why we're more creative is that in the brain, there's the right cerebral hemisphere versus the left. I mean, they do work together, but the right cerebral is much more about the intuitive, the creative, the big picture, the visual, the sensory. And up until about 8 years old in our development, we're very right cerebral hemisphere dominant. Mm-hmm. And then usually at about 8 years old, there's a spike in the development of the left cerebral, which is logic, reasoning, being rational, all of these things that are great for like planning in details. But in terms of creativity, sometimes, like if you've ever noticed, like you get in your own way, you get in your own headspace, you overthink so that you feel like you're blocked creatively. That's when the left cerebral hemisphere is really asserting its dominance.
It's like so the boss.
Exactly. And creativity, especially in terms of inspiration, is not so much about the how first, it's about the what. It's about being willing to imagine and just dream before being concerned about how is this actually going to happen. So that's what I want to play with. Mm-hmm.
That's just fantastic. And I want to add on to that, because that's something that's simple 2 words, tweak, is so important. And that's something I utilize a lot with my clients, replacing how with what. Because like you said, like when we're stuck, trying to figure out how we're going to do something, this is where we swim. And when you go into what can I do, then it's a whole world of possibility here.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's the willingness. This is where this practice piece comes in. It's the willingness to step into, like, I'm not going to worry about the how right now. Consider the how sometimes will take care of itself, or the how will show up later in terms of ideas and inspiration that start to, the puzzle pieces will come into play about how it all fits together. But not having that stop you from starting to look at, like, okay, what?
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah. So I'd like to take us through, this is a little visualization, imagination exercise about getting to our what. So I recommend that you just make yourself comfortable, whether you're sitting or standing or even lying down, however you're doing this. And then go ahead and close your eyes if that feels comfortable to you. And then just take a couple breaths in and out. So you're just starting to release any superficial tension. Check in with your body. Maybe you can relax your shoulders a little bit more away from your ears. Let your chest and your ribs relax. Let your jaw be soft. And start to let your breath get a little deeper. So you can imagine that it travels all the way down towards your abdominals. So you feel a little more grounded in your body. And it's okay if you have stray thoughts, things that float through your mind. That's normal. That's what the mind just does. But you're just kind of coming into yourself, into some quiet. And now in your mind, start to imagine what is something, and it can be big or small, doesn't matter, but what's something, if I asked you, what's something you would really, really love doing? Like, it would just be the best thing ever, you getting to do this. It can be an experience, it can be an activity, something just, oh God, I would absolutely, if I were doing this, everything in the universe would just be right. Again, can be small, can be big, doesn't matter. Another way to think about this is it's something that your heart just calls for. It gives you joy and wonder. It makes you happy. And just notice if there's a particular thought. Maybe notice the sensation in your body that this evokes when you think of this incredible thing that you would just love, love, love to be engaged in. Notice any of the particulars of where it would be, what would you be doing, what might you be saying. For now, don't think about any of the details. So notice if your brain has a little bit of a commentary about it, and just simply just let that be. For now, that really doesn't fit into this picture. In a perfect world, how would you be being? Would there be other people there with you? What would be happening? And can you actually just imagine you experiencing this? Mm-hmm. Again, notice any bodily sensations, feelings that this evokes. And notice if there is just this tiny little seed of some kind of an idea that this leaves in its wake for you. So, like the little seedling of maybe an idea of, okay, this is the dream. So, what's the little seed that's tied in to this bigger picture? And just see if anything pops up. It's okay, whatever does or doesn't. Don't judge, just let it, just simply, whatever it is. And then just let that be. Come back to your breath. Mm-hmm. And then when you're ready, you can gently start to float your eyes back open, back into your space. So
Good afternoon.
good afternoon. Yeah.
What did you say?
I just said, yeah, good afternoon. So
Yes.
it's interesting when we allow our imagination to take us where we really, I would say, want to go. What emerges outside of any of the hows, yeah, buts, what about, blah, 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 like outside of any of that.
Mm-hmm.
And really, I say that's a lot of where creativity lives, because it lives in the realm of outside of rational, linear. Now, not in terms of realization, sometimes, yes, that's really important, structure and technique and all of those things. And but in the seed of inspiration, and it lives outside of any constraints. Wayne Dyer, I think, once said, like, inspiration, it means in spirit. So
Yes.
when you're inspired, you're communing with spirit, you're communing with whatever you want to call it, the universe or the eternal or God or source or some kind of a divine intelligence that, as children, I think we're more attuned to, because we haven't become so rational yet that we're willing to dismiss the magical.
Yeah. I love that. And I said something similar yesterday. Like, we grew up losing that ability of creativity because we're taught that, that being creative means you have to be really good. And then you're like, wow, I'm not good at this. I can't be creative in that space. I suck,
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And there's a beautiful book that I keep coming back to. It's where my Lîla program, where the title came from. The author, he talks about it in that book about divine play. But he says there's this study that they took two groups of people who were working with pottery, and one group, their job was just to make pots every day, and it didn't matter how they turned out. And then there was another group that said you only get to make one pot. And the difference in the output from the people who had no attachment to that it has to be perfect or it has to be good was dramatically different. They were willing to just keep creating and creating and creating. And then, sure enough, one of them was fabulous in whatever, way that they were evaluating, I guess, professionals, versus the pressure of just one. And when it was just one, it was like you were literally putting on that creative block, because the pressure made that creative impulse so impossible. And kids, they don't have it. They're like, oh God, I hope this is good.
I know. I was like, yeah, it's good. I love it so much.
Yeah. And to your point, it's sad because we stifle ourselves so much. The willingness to be bad at something again, so that maybe one day we will be good at it. Very powerful.
It's so powerful, and we're so bad at it as adult because somehow we forgot how to fall, and we forgot, like, we don't like having bad ideas anymore because we're good at so many things as we grow up and learn things. It's like we keep forgetting how, well, to be creative or learn something new, I have to suck at it again.
Exactly.
And we're like, I'm not good at it. It's like, wait, but you've just been a week into it. Like, what do you expect? Like, you want to be like a master or something? What is a master anyway? Like, what?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It really.
And I find also
sorry, go ahead. You find
well, I find also, like, there's a paradox into that. To be able to create something, you have to be able to live it first. Because when you're saying, like, you tap into that imagination of no limits, like how to create something that never existed before, like you have to be able to put yourself there somehow. You have to see something, but yet we want to create that something perfectly and that path to it.
Yeah. Now, it reminds me of something I just read, I think yesterday, which was that consider that real discoveries and creativity, it's being willing to not know and to go forward with it anyway.
Yeah.
You know, that it's not the assurance of like, oh, I've got this all handled, so now I'm going to do it. It's the same thing about courage. You know, it's like real courage is about feeling fear and doing it anyway.
Yeah.
So I would assert creativity is a lot like that living piece. It's like, well, I don't know, but my task here is to realize and fulfill the vision to the best of my ability in its greatest authenticity to the inspiration that's coming through to me, you know.
Yeah.
And whether it's that life passion thing or something else, a vision, but and trusting and surrendering to that, how it gets realized is the right thing, and sometimes even better or different than you originally imagined it to be. That's the biggest lesson I've learned about creativity, is that sometimes we have to get out of our own ways to give up controlling
Yeah.
how it's going to happen.
That's so true. That's so true.
Yeah.
I think there's a little bit of a lag. Oh, welcome back. There's a laggy thing. Well, once again, we can talk about forever about creativity. And even when you said that the thing that we don't know until we know, and then when we know, then something else brings back to, well, I really don't know.
Yeah.
I feel there's like levels also in creativity. Like we keep
Absolutely.
reinventing ourselves, and then we get to a certain pillar, and then and then it continue to grow. But we have to sit on that pillar for a little while, or else
Yeah.
you're like,
Yeah.
you're
Oh yeah.
exhausting
Yeah.
yourself.
Exactly. There's,
Yeah.
you know, cycles or levels, and yeah, it speaks of an ongoing evolution, you know,
Mm-hmm.
that has it's this, you know, this, you talk about dance with creativity. It's this beautiful dance between control and certainty and surrender and the unknown and being with and allowing. And
Yeah.
it's, you know, always some dynamic balance of those things, you know, shifting,
Mm.
whether it's quickly or slowly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Basically, the number one thing to focus on today is to dance with that creativity in spite of anything that's happening right now, and practicing that muscle of dreaming without limits and forgetting about the how. Put the how aside.
Mhm.
And if it's really hard for you, redo the exercise that Kristen walked us through. Redo the exercise and ask your question, okay, what can I dream about today if everything was right with the world? And it's not utopian. It's more like just allow yourself to go there. Just do it. It's
Exactly.
fun. But
Exactly.
for some people, I can understand where it could be hurtful, because then it brings up feelings of like, but I really can't, or I miss that. But I still invite you to go there, because whatever feeling you're feeling is important to feel them.
Mhm.
Because
Mhm.
sometimes it tells us that, well, actually it's my feeling that's in my own way, not the fact that I can't dream, right? So
Exactly.
however you're brought to that space, it's perfect for it, it's the perfect at the perfect time and the perfect moment for what you need to learn.
Beautiful.
Awesome. Any words of wisdom for closing today?
Um,
I like your wisdom.
thank you. Yeah, you know, being in the space of allowing that,
Mm,
um, there's, you know, there's so much in terms of our circumstances and the gravity of what we're dealing with. And it's so natural to feel like everything right now is like this shouldn't be. And it's not that when we allow, it's not that we about it. It's still, there's many things that really, I don't want to say shouldn't be, but like they really, like, it's not easy.
mm-hmm.
And if you can allow a little bit of space of allowing it, just like with this creativity thing, like suspend the disbelief.
Mm,
Like it's a gift to yourself. And then when you do that, it's amazing that things can really shift. And I'm talking about shifting your perception, right? Because it's, the world is the way that it is, day by day by day. But we have so much power in our own perception about whether we are in a fight or an argument with it, which is not going to really necessarily change things out there. It's just going to make it really hard for ourselves.
yeah.
So when you allow both out there and in here, that's really where there's some real power. So that's what I would say for both this exercise and for what anything that people are dealing with right now. Know that there's a tremendous power in surrender. Allow, and then you might be surprised. You might feel like you're better equipped to deal with whatever needs to be dealt with.
I love that. Allow, surrender, and suspend the disbelief.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kristen.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I will be back tomorrow at noon again live. And I have another interview with a philanthropist and creative soul and other artists, because we talk about creativity. So of course, maybe I should have another guest that is not necessarily an artist, because to your point, Kristen, it's not just about creating something artsy, right? But yeah, you have a great day. Stay home, stay safe, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.